You're listening to Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. I'm Karen Walters, the AppSec and DevSecOps builder trying to automate the world. And with me is Kurt Handel, the battle-tested security architect with zero trust worldview. We turn real-world chaos into conversations that matter. Grab your coffee and let's get into it. So we're here with part two of cloud. You know, it's a big topic. It's got a lot going on. Part one, we covered a lot of different things, Kurt, right? We covered a whole bunch of things.
So much.
Not enough. And the list, like, I know we were putting this agenda together and we were like, all right, so we only covered what cloud is, shared responsibility, the shift to identity is, was it centric view, security view?
Yeah.
CSPM.
We beat CSPM up pretty bad.
Beat CSPM up for a while, and then like common cloud posture kind of foundations. Definitely beat the crap out of identity. Right, identity is the new perimeter. Identity is the perimeter. It's not the new perimeter. It's not. That's the hot take. It's or the core take.
It's the original.
It's the original.
It's the OG.
Yeah, and then I pushed you hard for the ideal cloud security tech stack. So if you didn't listen to that episode, and we didn't finish it, no, dude, we still had so much more. And so if you didn't listen to it, then go check out that. I believe it was episode 13, part 1.
Yep.
But before we get into the actual fun, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, give us 5 stars. This really helps the channel and keeps us going. Smash the smash. Reach out to us on LinkedIn if you want to send feedback, questions. I get all kinds of people messaging me about, follow-ups on certain things. Always open. My door is open on LinkedIn. I'm sure Kurt feels the same way. Today's episode, part 2. We're going to dive into a number of different things. I know we have a massive agenda. We want to talk about identity again. We want to talk about Kubernetes, APIs. We want to talk about AI more. Maybe bad advice that we hear around. So maybe some design patterns, incident response into this, and then kind of what goes next. Hopefully we can jump in each one of those. I know for me and you, we always put these jam-packed calendars and schedules and are like, hey, we're going to do all this. And then we spend like 30 minutes on one topic because we just can't stop rambling and talking about, X, Y, Z. So it's a good time. I don't know.
There's a lot to all of these. I mean, how do you cover Kubernetes in 10 minutes, for example? Well, we're going to try. We could have whole episodes on each of these topics. We're just scratching the surface, but that's how you start in ProdSec.
True. Yeah. I mean, what our main goal is to really give everybody that foundational understanding. Give it from our leadership perspective, kind of what we've seen, kind of maybe make some suggestions for vendors if they listen. I know a lot of members actually do listen to our podcasts, which we get a lot of feedback. It's really interesting. I think someday we may have some vendors come on to the podcast and we can probe them, talk through their perspectives. I think that'll be a lot of fun and very interesting to get the other side, right? We hear a lot of practitioners doing things out there. But there's also the perspective of the vendor and kind of what they're trying to accomplish. So I think it'd be fun someday.
Yeah.
Where do you want to jump in?
We got to talk about coffee, man. The title starts with coffee, so
fair enough. I mean, last week we almost forgot, so that's fair.
You almost forgot. I almost forgot last week. Now you almost forgot this week. So
I didn't forget. I try to sneak it in here and there. I try to sneak it in there. So maybe sometimes we start the topic and then we end the topic. I'm like, hey, coffee time, right? We gotta change it up here and there.
I'm excited about my coffee, so I can't let it go.
Then take us in. What are you drinking?
All right, coffee. I got fancy new beans. It's from Sterling Coffee Roasters in Portland, Oregon. Your future home. It's like a light medium roast. I was reading the bag for entirely too long, like tasting notes of chocolate and citrus and caramel. So it's real good. I don't have a lot in it because I like the taste of my coffee. I don't want flavors or anything like that. So I really enjoyed it. It's their platinum blend. They have a ton of different coffees on their website and at their roastery, but I got the platinum one, and that's what I'm drinking. What do you got?
You're making me want to go buy this, man. The way you sold it, it was like, is this a commercial? Are we sponsored? I wish. I mean,
no, I just really like this coffee they sent me.
Dude, you're gonna have to send me it. What am I drinking?
I bought it. They didn't. I wish they sent it to me. I bought it, and then it came to me.
Well, you gotta send it to me. Sorry, that's all I'll go buy. But I'm drinking Alkaline Coffee Company. When I get the darn recordings on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. It's a cold brew, non-acidic, mineral treated
Interesting.
175 milligrams of caffeine. It
Loaded.
Yeah, it's loaded. It's good. It's good. No flavors. I just put a little. I put it in my cup, my sweet little cup with little stickers on it, because
Yeah.
all our Yeti cups and all our cups have stickers on them. But I did a splash of oat milk in it, or almond milk in it, and it's not bad. No flavors. I finished peppermint, so we're out of peppermint right now. My wife's got to make more syrup. She's gonna, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I've got a sticker now on my cup because my daughter was playing with stickers. So now I got a little pizza. So when the video is released, you can see the pizza that ended up on my coffee cup.
Yeah,
It's no longer just a plain boring Yeti cup. It's got
there you go.
style now. Just like
Facts.
my fancy new coffee that you can go there all the time. You'll be sending this to me when you move.
Ugh. Can't wait to get there where it's a little cooler. I don't know about you, but the weather is weird. We're like 10 degrees hotter than we should be. It's supposed to be like 80 degrees a day. Just want it to be cold.
It's rained here for like 2 weeks.
That's what I
So
want.
it's finally stopping. We had this atmospheric river and it's the flooding and mudslides. It's crazy, but it's over.
Hmm. I mean, I wish I had that much rain. It's been hot and sunny here. So, all right.
Like
Cloud security.
soon.
You got a bunch of clouds. Now let's talk about some cloud security. Where do you want to jump in? You got any hot takes to kick us off with?
I always have hot takes, but it's if you tell me give a hot take, it's hard to pick one. I mean,
Fair
I've
enough.
given we started talking about identity last time, and the hottest take is that it's not the new attack surface, it's not the new perimeter, it's the original. So I'm going to repeat that one here. It ties back to the last episode, and then beyond that, I think it's the newest hot take in the AI space and identity is stop treating your AI agents like they need to have complete freedom. Like these things are scary. They go off the rails. I was reading an article about someone let Claude run their business and it just started giving stuff away. Like, come on now. Don't let AI do privileged things without having checks and balances in place. So give it identities and keep things under control. And when privileged activity takes place, have someone checking it constantly. So
Yeah.
that's my hottest take related to identity and AI, which we'll visit later.
That's funny.
Um,
That's funny you say that. I just want to say, because this morning I was reading a bunch of stuff on LinkedIn and somebody posted this article that I was just like, yes, so much yes, because they summarized a lot of my different feelings around MCP servers and API keys, which we're going to talk about API keys today. And agents is always like all these different things that I commonly see both, where we're working and in when I talk to other people is around MCP servers and identity, right? They're treating these identities as like more like humans in the sense that they give them a credential. Maybe it's sometimes a service account, but a lot of times what we're seeing is people are using their own personal tokens for automation, for maybe centrally hosting an MCP server internally or whatever. But they're not practicing the proper like design patterns, right? Like OAuth, short-lived tokens, having these tokens be tied to specific roles within your clouds,
yeah.
all these different things that you should be doing with your MCP servers. And their post was just great. I retweeted it, and then me and the actual person who posted it, we started chatting, and he's like, "You want to like sync up for like 30 minutes and have a conversation?" I was like, sure. I'm excited for that, but identity is huge, and I know what we've had an entire episode on identity. We talked about it last time, and we're talking about it today.
Yeah. I mean, I was on a different podcast with an identity security vendor like 2 weeks ago. Well, 2 weeks ago at the time of recording, but it'll be 4 to 6 weeks once this releases, I think. I don't know. Timing's all weird.
Yeah, but I mean, the big thing that I think, or the big one thing I wanted to talk about, and you can help me break this down, is the difference between like human identities and workload identities. Because I feel like a lot of time when companies are building services or building things with devs, right, they usually start more with the human identity because they're using maybe their personal keys to get something along the line, and then it transitions once it heads to more of an operational or prod or automated way. It moves into workload identities. Is that true? Is that not true?
I mean, I don't know, human identities, non-human identities. This is the breakdown we see now. We used to see like You just have human users and you have machine users, right? And so the language around this is changing, especially with AI and the rest of it. We're seeing vendors pop up in these spaces. And so it's like, one, going back to your comments about how people are giving credentials to MCP servers and whatever, stop with the static credentials. Like, that is a thing of the past. Treat these things as secrets. They will be compromised. You need to control them and monitor them. And frankly, AI agents should be treated with, you need to be as careful with them as you do with humans. They go off the rails all the time. Humans go off the rails less. Think about that for a second. So when you move into workload identities, I mean, a lot of people, I think, like you said, start with humans because you're building, you're doing things manually, you're testing, you're trying to figure it out. A lot of people, and here comes a hot take, a lot of people just give wildcard permissions. And I'm sick of seeing that in the world because that's, I mean, that's a credential where I can do so much more than I need to. And that's a gold mine for an attacker. That's what they want today because it makes, like, forget all the rest of your defenses. You get an identity, you're done. So treat machine identities with, like, you need to focus on these with least privilege from the start. And so as you're building with the human involved, you need to be tightly constraining to actually think about, what do I need this thing to do? And focus on paring that down sooner than later, because too often we see these things get launched into production and no one ever changes them.
Yeah.
I personally have been in environments with hundreds of thousands of over permissioned identities. I can see these with tooling, and I know I've had hot takes on this, I think, in the last episode on cloud security. I can see it, can't do anything about it with these tools. And so now I need to purchase another specialized solution. And frankly, we can go back and we can revisit the tech stack if you want. But the philosophy now is really, I know we're moving towards this whole idea of platformization and having one sort of tool to rule them all. But I think it needs to be hybrid where you have a platform and then you bring in specialized tools like in the identity space, because they'll do these critical things much better than the platform. And so when you bring it all together, yes, it's going to be slightly more expensive or a lot more expensive. If you have the budget, great, get after it. Um, Identity is where you don't shortchange anything,
Well, as you're saying,
especially around machines.
It comes back to the core concept, right? Identity is your perimeter. And so it being your perimeter, it needs to be treated like that. Would you say organizations don't treat it that way? I mean, like, I kind of think you're alluding to that.
Yeah, and it depends. Like, some of the newer companies that are fully cloud native because they started after the cloud became the place to be, right? They're building in this sort of identity first realm. And I mean, this is kind of where the phrase assume breach comes into play. Is assume breach means you're going to be compromised and you treat everything as such. And so you always have your backup plan. You always have a way to handle that and fail securely or fail graciously so that you just don't have an outage. You say, I had a problem, but I fixed it, or automation fixed it. And so it used to be the days of data centers and on-prem, your network was your perimeter. And it grinds my gears when people are like, it's internal only. It's an API that's internal. No one from the outside can access it. So it's unauthenticated. Like, are you out of your mind? You know how easy it is to get on a corporate network today? I could just walk into your company and plug into the wall and people are going to look at me like, hey, who's that guy? But he's here. He must be fine.
Yeah. Well, it comes back to the core concepts of cybersecurity, right? Defense in depth, right? You want to have a layered defense, even though your perimeter, we're not building eggshell defenses anymore, right?
No.
We're building things that are legit, that are supposed to be, outside of the checkbox security, moving towards this. I'm trying to get so many hot takes.
Trying to get the hot takes. I'm going to bring them.
But the egg defense, right? That is not something we should be focusing anymore. We have to have layered defenses, as we've harped for the last decade. Secure by design, and then building the environments with the idea that, hey, maybe you're going to get breached. And if you get breached, you want to focus on your identities and the permissions and the level of access to prevent as little lateral movement as possible. Because as attackers compromise, maybe the attacker compromises a less privileged user. first thing they're going to do is try to laterally move and escalate. So when you think of that in that direction, you want to make sure your services are all at least privileged and stripped to the bare minimum to prevent that sprawl.
Well, and we talked about in our vulnerability episodes, like attack chaining, right? Like chaining vulnerabilities is one thing. You exploit one to exploit another, and you increase your abilities as you go. And same thing with identity is if I compromise one identity, what's the first thing I do? I start probing. I do the reconnaissance and figure out what more can I do with this, or can I get anywhere with it? Because attackers like to move quickly. They like the path of least resistance. And so if it's too hard, they're going to move on. Say, forget this, move on to the next thing. Right. That's the idea behind defense in depth. And so if you just blatantly over permission an identity and an attacker gets it, game over, man. Like they're going to find a lateral movement. They're going to find ways to exploit what they can do with that identity, elevate, what have you. There's so many things you can do depending on how over permission the identity is, of course. So that whole idea of least privilege is tightly constrain it. And then, of course, layered defenses like have your network controls and microsegmentation. Let's throw all the buzzwords out. But essentially, put it in a box. And if someone compromises that box, they can't get anywhere. They're stuck. And so you find it and you kill that workload because it's compromised. And we operate in a world of, and now I'm going to branch into the next space of like ephemeral workloads, which Kubernetes, microservices, et cetera. So I can kill it and spin up a new one, or I can kill it, rotate a secret, spin up a new one very quickly. And now I don't have a problem. And if I can automate that and AI is making this easier, then I don't even have to watch the thing.
Yeah.
I can just report out on it and be like, we stopped 100 attacks this month.
Well, the one thing
that's the dream.
Before we kind of go into that kind of direction, the big thing that I think is one of the most difficult parts is the identity sprawl, because every company looking over all the architectural documents that your team does, right? I study those things heavily. Every document that you guys produce, the threat models, all those kinds of different, very detailed and needed documents. But when I start looking at them, what I start noticing is, as companies move to multi-cloud, most companies are not single cloud. You kind of are sometimes forced into multi-cloud. And when you're forced in this multi-cloud, you have AWS IAM, you have Azure Entra ID, you have Google Cloud IAM, and maybe you have to throw Okta in there, and then you have Auth, Auth0, then you have custom solutions, and you got random things in there, and you're combining all these different platforms of identities. How do we, like, as experts and as industry practitioners, manage this? Because that's crazy. That's bananas.
Identity, it is bananas. It's the most banana. It's a whole freaking banana tree, man. Like the identity sprawl is out of control because you're talking multi-cloud. You're sourcing your identities from one identity provider. You might be using multiple identity providers. You might be integrating with customer identity providers in a B2B scenario or a B2C. And so now you have another secondary IDP. And so how do you control all of this? Well, you either need an identity team, which gets expensive as you scale. And frankly, humans are slow and prone to error. We've all seen that. And you've got to build automation and the rest of it. But there's the whole concept of identity governance. IGA solutions of the past are expensive. They're huge. They're clunky. They've evolved. There's more modern. Even some of the legacy vendors, they've evolved and are becoming better. But there's new players in the identity governance space that can govern multi-cloud. And ultimately, what they're enabling, and I did the podcast with one of these companies, is like just-in-time access everywhere. So think about huge. A world
that is crazy. Right?
Zero persistent permissions.
Yeah. Wow.
So if a workload spins up and it needs to do a thing, it gets a temporary credential for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, what have you. Maybe you have a mechanism to renew that credential because it's a token and you can have a renewal, whatever, as that workload continues. But once it's done, access is gone. Like that is the dream. And then if you layer in zero trust on top of that, I'm going to say the naughty word, zero trust, continuous authentication authorization, to say every time these workloads do something, you're checking to make sure that they're authorized to do so, or humans are doing something. Check. Is this who I think it is? Are they authorized? Is their machine posture okay? Are they low risk? If so, great, grant them access to do what they need to do. And once they're done, no more access. This is extremely hard to do at scale.
I was going to say, even with these vendors, I bet it's still difficult. You still require a full identity team. Sure, with a vendor and an identity team, it's cheaper and more efficient, but it's still extremely difficult. You're going to have to be working with a very mature organization to be part of the design process, because you're going to have to build this from day one. It's not something you can just
Yeah.
bake in later, because you're going to have to re-architect how your
Yep.
services interact and handle authentication. Ooh, that would be, I mean, from a
Oh,
code perspective and an AppSec perspective, that is, I imagine a shared library you're going to have to handle, maybe a cross department, authentication scheme or something that built in from day one.
well, here's another hot take for you. So many people think you can buy zero trust. Not true. Zero trust is a mentality. It is not an architecture by itself, although
Vendors
we
will
say
say
zero
different,
trust
dude. I
architecture.
don't know.
Well,
I talk to vendors all the
vendors,
time and they're like, hey, Cam, we can solve your zero trust. Like, literally, you buy us, pay us a lot of money, and boom, you have zero trust. You don't have to change your culture. You don't have to talk to humans. We got you.
zero trust cannot happen without a cultural shift. I will say that right now. Identity, true identity, security, least privilege, all of it. This is a cultural shift. It's massive. And so, yes, there are vendors in the world where like they have zero trust access. So ZTA is a category, or SASE, secure access service edge is another one. And these things kind of go hand in hand. But we'll see vendors trying to sell this idea of, well, hey, buy my solution and you'll get zero trust. That's not true. You could buy that solution, but now you're going to have to re-architect to fit your environment into it. And so retrofitting an environment, especially a large one, to become zero trust is extremely difficult. I don't care how much money and time you have, it's going to take you a long time. It's going to be extremely expensive. And some of the newer players are helping with this, but there's no one size fits all solution. And so you're likely going to bring in one, two, well, probably two or three different solutions, plus a team who's an expert in the space in order to get this right. And then you have to make sure that the process cannot break down. And for that, you need the guardrails built in. You have to manage the policies. So you're shifting from sort of people managing the identities to people managing the policies and tying those in, whether it's groups or attributes, what have you. And then it's just like make sure your process is sound and works like a well-oiled machine. And then the audits and the rest of it, you've already checked the boxes, so audits are easy.
Yeah. I want to throw this in here just because it's one of the quotes that we have in there, and in our agendas we have it. We always have some fun quotes, and this one I think is one I want to call out, which is zero trust is beautiful in PowerPoint, but if you're sharing accounts or sharing services, account credentials across environments, nobody audits machines' identities. You're not practicing zero trust. You're practicing hope. And I'm like, yeah,
Exactly it.
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of companies think they maybe they are, or teams, or even vendors are pitching hope, when in reality they're not grounding it in that it's a multi-pronged effort that is going to take a cultural shift. And I think we've talked about this before in just cybersecurity in general. Our job is, as security professionals, is always changing culture and providing a
Yeah.
security mindset, getting your key stakeholders to buy in on that. Zero trust is a massive one. I mean, getting your teams, everybody from top level down, buy-in that you need to authenticate, and then a tool is only going to help amplify that effort. I think vendors can definitely change up how they talk a little and be like, we are one piece and maybe a large piece of it, but it's going to take a lot of work from everybody to get to where you need to get.
Yeah. I mean, this zero trust is a popular term. There's mandates in the government to be zero trust, this, that, and the rest of it. So yeah, it's a hot topic. It is beautiful in PowerPoint. Every time I see you put it in PowerPoint, though, I'm going to roll my eyes at you until you prove to me that it's actually going to work. And so they're always selling hope, and it's great. But kind of tying this back to the leadership comment you made, it's all about influence. I mean, our job is 20% or less technical, and 80 plus percent non-technical because it's communication, it's influence, it's getting buy-in, it's business. And so becoming that business enabler so that security enables innovation at scale and with velocity is extremely important. Security cannot be an anchor, cannot be dead weight, cannot slow things down.
Right. Well,
That's how you lose to your competitors.
to wrap up identity, we've beaten this topic up a lot, but I wanted to ask this, which is, we're seeing AI being dropped in everywhere and every which way in cloud. We're seeing a new, wrapped in microservices, new features that are becoming out. We're seeing tons of new stuff. Code is being generating tons of new applications, services, features, XYZ. In the next 6 months, what do you expect is going to happen from both enterprise, maybe breaches or attacks, or even vendors? We already highlighted a little that in the next 6 months. What are you expecting? Right? I know we did our last episode or 2 episodes ago was the predictions. Do you think you can slide in another prediction?
Well, I mean, it's already kind of happening. This is the layup part of this is we have so many AI security vendors popping up. And so governing MCP servers, governing agents, the identities associated with them, understanding the permissions, getting control, visibility, the rest of it. This is going to be probably the hottest space for 2026, probably into 2027. And so identity's already been lit on fire. I think some of the newer identity players are already branching into the AI space to say, hey, we can monitor your agents if you give them a proper identity. And then our governance process kicks in. And you can even enable just in time processes to say, like, someone requests access. I can augment this with AI to say, based on what I know, make a decision, yes or no. Or if you can't decide because it's risky, escalate it to the human. So we're going to see AI built into the governance processes. We're going to see AI governed in from an identity perspective and monitored as such. Like, network monitoring is cool and all for anomalies and what have you. Runtime monitoring, that's cool and all. Prevention's where it's at. Um, but beyond that, I think the identity focus is going to become even larger.
Makes sense. I agree. I'm expecting very much the similar. A lot more expansion, a lot more tools. Any advice I would give to anybody is, I know identity is a lot of work. From my perspective, divide and conquer. Figure out where your most risk is identities wise. Where's your most risky apps handling the most risky stuff? Focus on tailoring those ones and slowly work out from there. I don't know, Kurt, do you have any other small little branches of advice you could give?
I think this is kind of how I approach it all the time. Like, as architect, whether I'm in leadership or being the architect or just a general security professional, drop me into an environment and say, where is the most critical thing? And don't tell me that it's everything. I'm tired of seeing audits where they're like, where's your business criticality analysis? What are your most critical assets? And everyone's like, all of it. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So this is why we have the term crown jewels. Find the most critical things, like you just said, focus on those and work your way outward to the lower priority items. Identity is going to be a big focus. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's even more important today than it's ever been.
It's only going to increase. So, well, pivoting. Yes. I know we've wanted to jump into this topic for a long time. Kubernetes, the infamous Kubernetes, dude. It's a good one. Everyone always thinks Kubernetes is just containers, right? It's just containers, right, Kurt? It's all I have to do.
It's really containers. So I know
what
you're trying. You like getting the hot takes out of me when we talk cloud security, because cloud security is my jam. I spend all of my time in cloud security. Kubernetes is not just containers. It's an orchestration platform. Start there. This is how you deploy containers. You have Docker and the rest of it, but Kubernetes is complex. It's hard. It carries risk because you have to know how to manage it. There's so much to unpack in Kubernetes and how to harden an environment and control things. And I mean, identity. We can, as
I was going to say, identity isn't there usually something called like a mesh network? Like, what is this mesh network that gets put in there?
You want a service mesh is a
Yeah,
way to
service mesh.
enable
There it is.
authenticated secure communications between services. And so you're going to hear people say MTLS, mutual TLS authentication, meaning for Kubernetes, you have to understand certificate management. People are like, well, there's a CA, it signs the certs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not that simple. Cert management is very hard to get right and manage. And that's why you have certificate management automation platforms. And Kubernetes is no different. You have so many certificates involved in a Kubernetes cluster that it's like, it's so easy to mess things up. Like, I don't even fully understand it. I feel like I have to lean on, I have a few experts in my team, one in particular who like can automate this in his sleep. But cert management stands out because you want services to have identities, they can communicate via certificates and authenticate with each other and then encrypt the communication. Kubernetes comes out of the box, self signed cert. That's garbage. Don't use it. If you look at the cert, it actually says it's a fake cert. And so if I ever catch someone using that in an environment, like I put them on blast because I see it happen all the time. And that's just
Why?
one part of identity
Why do you
in
think they do
Kubernetes.
that? Wouldn't they have something where it's secure by design?
I mean, Kubernetes is designed for flexibility and maximizing the power you get out of your infrastructure, right? Because before we went everywhere with VMs. You got this huge pool of resources to run one tiny application. That's stupid. So containers became a thing. Kubernetes was popularized because I think Google built it. And now you can run all of these microservices, which are just like the service does one thing and it can communicate with other services or a user interacts with it. You deploy them all to multiple machines in some cases. So you have horizontal scaling, you have vertical scaling. It just unlocks optimization like you've never seen before, right? And so it's extremely complex. They can't make this thing come out of the box and be like, it's secure. It's like if you give someone a hammer, they're going to look at it and be like, that's cool. What am I supposed to do with this? You got to have some idea of how to use it, right? So yeah, it's cool if you build a lab environment, you want to get familiar with Kubernetes, you're using self-signed certs, you're exploring, like learn those concepts. And then when you carry them into practice, now you have to start expanding and using the basics of security in a production environment. So you have to use real certificates. You have to use real identities. You have to have processes in place to manage all of these things. Your network policies. I think one of the things that really kind of annoys the crap out of me with Kubernetes is the container network interface, the CNI that comes out of the box. It cannot enforce network policies. You can build this big, amazing network security policy to say which containers can communicate with other things, what egress is allowed, what ingress is allowed, just all of it. It won't do anything if you use the default CNI. So you have to go get like a Calico or a Cilium that can actually enforce a network policy.
Mm.
And then, I mean, going back to the identity thing, I know we're kind of all over the place, but there's so much here. Is Kubernetes has RBAC. It has ways to manage role-based permissions for users at different levels. There's cluster roles. There's namespace level permissions, and like you have to create all these role bindings. It's insanely complex, and so it's very easy to hurt yourself in Kubernetes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask your opinion because this is something as somebody who focuses, my team when we deal with containers, we usually just fix them or upgrade the
Yeah,
vulnerabilities, detect that. But in terms of Kubernetes cluster maintaining, we don't really do that much in there. But when we attack these things, I always have a difference of opinion depending on the auditor or the person. Which one's more important, the container or maybe the pod, right? A lot of companies, when I talk to, they're like, we focus on the container. And I feel like that is more of an eggshell defense because as an
yeah,
attacker, the first thing I try to do is get into the container and then escalate to get to where everything is hosting those containers. Because if
right.
I compromise that, what happens?
Well, you want to break out of the container to compromise the host, and now
Yep.
it's you've hit a higher level privilege, and from there they're going to look for ways to elevate permissions or laterally move, right? Because these things can communicate. And so container breakouts are what attackers are going to focus on. I've seen a handful of these happen in practice. I had someone on my team actually execute one just for fun, to show that it was possible on a certain vulnerable deployment that we recognized. So I would argue the whole thing, this is kind of a cop out, but the whole thing is important. The containers are the easy part. It's got your software, harden it, minimize what you deploy so that it has only what it needs, because that's how containers were designed to be used. Upgrade your packages. Stop carrying vulnerabilities into production just because you're lazy. And
But
then
Kurt,
in terms of,
I can't upgrade because I rely on that that feature functionality, right? And it would require a configural change or code change to meet the upgrade. Come
well,
on, dude.
this is software development, so it's very well known that you should upgrade your stuff, not persist versions of libraries and packages that are 10 years old just because you like it, or it has a feature and they deprecated it and now you have to do something different. Like, technology evolves, man. This is what engineers do. Like, when I was a developer, I did this all the time. And maybe that's because I'm security minded and I don't know, whatever. We're seeing that shift too. People are caring more about this. And if you want to get into vulnerabilities, go visit our vulnerability episodes for plenty of hot takes. Um, but I'm not gonna sit on that landmine any further. Just upgrade your stuff in a reasonable amount of time, please. And beyond that, the clusters and the pods, like the whole, let's just say cluster, you have the control plane and then you have like the data plane. Control plane obviously is privileged. That's where the API server is. That's what you want to compromise because it has control of the whole pod. And so again, there's identity, there's networking. It's bananas.
Yes.
Um, and then you can add like admission controllers, so you can actually deploy something to say whether a container is allowed to run or not. This is more advanced, mature functionality to say like if a container carries critical vulnerabilities, don't allow it. I know this is a bad example because not all criticals are necessarily exploitable, but it's a simple example. So you build policies, you can define policies with code even to say if you have this problem, container can't run. Fix it, then it can run. So now this is an additional check on top of your CI/CD, right? To say like if it got through the build, great. I'm still not going to let it run in production because I don't want to carry that mess into attacker land.
Yep. That makes sense. Makes sense. I get what you're saying. Around, I mean, can you manage? I think a lot of teams are moving towards managing their Kubernetes clusters via code, right?
Yeah.
They're starting to build out much more configurations around Terraform and Helm charts, managing your containers via Docker files, right? So with all these different things coming together, identity is more important there too. I know from the AppSec side, when we scan all these containers as they head in there, as well as Helm charts and all the automation that builds and controls how these clusters scale up, down, and left and right, there's not that many good tools out there. I know from the AppSec side that are really good at detecting things, and which kind of frustrates me because we have to do a lot of manual. There's some up and coming AI stuff that's coming out, but I feel like it's a neglected space to help teams scale and manage these massive configurations and Kubernetes clusters that we have to manage.
Yeah, I think like there's often like it's viewed as like a two-sided problem, right? There's doing security in production, which you don't want to do because now it's a monitor, detect, and respond scenario, which is just going to burn out your SOC, which we've talked about before. And
We'll
then
talk more
everyone
about
likes
later.
yeah. And then the other side of this is like, why don't the devs just make it secure by design and default and listen to the security team? And like, they don't have time. Like we need to be an enabler and jump in there and help them, like give them the answers in some cases or augment the team, put a security engineer in that team and solve the problem for them and then throw this thing in a testing environment. And so now I'm going to argue that there's a hybrid approach. And this is how I try to solve some of the bigger problems. Like devs don't have time to figure out least privilege, for example. So how do we do it? Well, I have these big bad tools that can literally monitor workloads in dev test stage environments. So your pre production environments to say, what is the actual usage? If you gave it a star permission, it can just do everything. But it's built to do certain things, right? Well, we can monitor for that for 30 days or less. And then at some point you say, okay, I know how this thing behaves. And well, if you deployed a malicious workload and that's in your baseline, well, you're toast. Go back to the drawing board. But anyway, assume it's not compromised already. You monitor that API usage, and you can then automatically have least privilege handed to you with a security solution that's doing this monitoring. And so now constrain that. So submit a pull request or whatever, update the role, and now keep testing. And if your workload doesn't break, great, promote. And now you're going into production with the least privilege identity. And it was a team effort. Like the devs devved, they built their thing, and security came in and said, hey, we're going to secure this thing with you and make your life easier. And we're still going to get to production on time. So let's use the tools and technologies we have to do things right, rather than continue to fight each other to be like, you do it. No, you do it. No one has time for that. And then everyone's burned out and quits.
Well, I think we beat that one up enough. I know you mentioned APIs. It's our next topic. I really want to jump more into there. APIs, application programming interface, for people to know. I think a lot of times you only hear API, you never actually hear the definition or actually what it spells out. But APIs are everything, right? Literally everything. The foundations of everything that we do on the internet, websites, intercommunications, MCP servers. Everyone says MCP servers are just fancy APIs, right? That's all they do. They just reach out to APIs. Yeah, just a middleman between two different APIs, right? As these things kind of go out and handle there's a massive sprawl attack surface. I know early in my career when APIs really started to explode, there was misconceptions. Everyone thought APIs, oh, if I don't have it as a public API, no one, it's I don't have to secure it, right? It's internal. Yeah, it's safe. It's internal. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's still calling stuff over the internet. And just because it's not documented publicly does not mean that anybody can grab that. Even undocumented APIs. All the time, I know when I was doing a lot of automation, I didn't have the functionality, but the functionality was in the UI. So you could just grab that API call yourself. Sure, it might change. The difference that I always saw with documented and undocumented APIs, vendor would say, hey, here's your list of supported APIs. Usually those APIs don't change, and they're much more rigid. The ones that are under the interface and actually you can analyze during the network calls, those will change a lot, but you can totally still hit them, use them, manipulate them, do whatever you want with them. It's a very fascinating space with APIs. And one of my biggest headaches, and one thing I wanted to kick this off, was one of the most frustrating things with APIs is API documentation. Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's bananas. Every company I've ever been at, I've never gotten a full list of here's all our APIs. I ask other people, other AppSec professionals, other just professionals in general, we're all struggling with the same thing. Yep. How do we know all the APIs? And then you would expect like a DAS tool, you're scanning your applications, would pick up all the APIs. DAS tools, 99% of all of them require you to upload some kind of inventory file
or something.
Yeah, some kind of inventory file, right? And so then you have to handle that. And then there's other tools that quote unquote do it, where they crawl your interface and try to get them all. But at the same time, shouldn't these things have been documented at day one? There's a lot of tooling, a lot of vendors I know out there that can do that for you, but most engineering teams don't do it. It's an amalgamation of APIs everywhere. I don't know. It's a mess. APIs are a mess.
And frankly, it's like you said earlier, this is the way the world operates now. It's API-driven architectures are everywhere. Every SaaS, software as a service, not SaaS to be confused with the AppSec tooling. Every SaaS service you're using is API-driven under the hood. So I can analyze network calls. I can extract whatever API calls you're making, use those endpoints as long as I have my token, which I can easily grab, and now I can do whatever I want, whether it's documented or undocumented. The thing that always gets me is like, you documented all of these other APIs. Why did you miss 5 or 6 other endpoints? When a lot of like good documentation or teams that kind of follow best practices, they use tools where it's like it builds the documentation based on comments in their code, right?
Mm.
So like the code is the documentation, and all you have to do is run a tool on top of it, and it's like, bam, here's the documentation. I don't have to think about it. Like that's my dream, at least, is have the developers actually kind of where they operate in the IDE. Like, don't go build me a Confluence page. That's a waste of time. Build it in your code. Now, yes, you still have to put time towards it, but make it easier for everybody. And then the security team can test against that, right? But since that's not the reality of the situation, we're seeing that AI red teaming is really kind of
Mhm.
firing up in this space because AI can do these quick analyses and be like, hey, that's an outlier. I'm going to go hit that and see what I can do with it.
But
And
I wanted to say one thing. The thing you brought up in my brain when you talked about the AI aspect of it and in code is that I'm seeing a lot of developers document their code via AI. So they're having the AI do the documentation. But I mean, that's not a bad use case of it, right? It's going to analyze what your code is doing and
right.
then spit out what it's doing, or spit out a comment. So that would be pretty cool to have an AI documenter that also documents APIs and develops some kind of schema in your
Absolutely.
code, and then you can query and maybe it spits out some kind of dot file that you can dot ignore, and then you would scrape all those files and you would detect all your APIs. That would be pretty cool and a great use case. Maybe you could even build an agent that does that. One agent that goes to your code, comments it, another agent that verifies that all the comments are good, another agent that scrapes through all the APIs, makes sure you have them, puts it in a combination, and then gives you a list of all your APIs. That would be a pretty awesome internal, even security team could do this.
Yeah.
Build something that
Well,
does this.
take it a step further. You could have something else that then tests and identifies anything that's like wrong or off, right?
Yeah, I
And
would say
so
get into
it's
that
within
direction,
the
but I was like, what I'm thinking is giving me that file that I need to give my DAS tool or to my pen testers,
yeah,
right? Because I like to pen test APIs both via DAS and from third parties as well as internally.
yeah,
That would be pretty cool to already have an inventory that I could go attack and completely understand that are all the documented APIs, not even the ones that are public or that were publicly put forward, all of them.
right.
That would be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard or seen any vendors in the space doing this
I
yet.
think you could do it yourself, right? Building your own
You
agent
could.
internally, right? With Claude or something, do some NA to N automation. I don't know. Now I got to write this down after this podcast and
Yeah. I
go
mean, now
experiment on this now.
let's go have an interesting conversation with some devs.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a pretty fun one. But back to what you were saying around APIs. I mean, what's your number one frustration with APIs and cloud?
That people still think an internal API can be unauthenticated.
You still run into that today and age?
Yes, and I hate it. I mean, in some cases, to be fair, it's an undocumented API, so people missed it. But I also, everywhere I've gone, I've run into APIs that are documented, they're internal, and I'm like, this is unauthenticated. Like, I can do whatever I want with this. And they're like, but it's internal only. That's not an excuse. It's 2025. We just talked about how network perimeters aren't a thing anymore, and that you should assume breach, and that you need to control identity, access, and authorization. So an unauthenticated API does none of that.
Yeah. Well, I
And
want to. Oh,
it's
go.
bonkers or bananas or insane to even think that people try to use that excuse anymore.
That's fair. I was gonna say around authenticated APIs. I want to take it a step further. What I hear and see is that, hey, we didn't authenticate it because there's no like important information, right? It's spitting out information or whatever that is completely not useful for. It doesn't have PII, doesn't have anything. Like maybe it just spits out the date. And I'm like, but today it spits out the date. In
Yeah,
6 months, it might spit out the date and the endpoint, right? And then you're starting to add new stuff. You're starting to leak more data and more information. So I think every API, regardless of what it does, should be authenticated. because we have no idea what it will turn into and what assumptions will be built upon in the future. So build it right day one. Just
Yeah.
authenticate. Just do you're expecting an authenticate or an actual internal service to hit that. So why not just have a little communication there and just prove who's talking? Just do that, because in the future you have no idea what's going to happen, who's going to be working on that code. So it should always be authenticated.
And it's just on principle, right? Like we beat this topic to death of least privilege and only let people have access that need access. And this is whether you're using an API, whether you're reading documentation, whether you have access to certain data. Like we use this principle everywhere. So why wouldn't you do it by default in your technology? Like I don't care if it's not critical data. More often than not, you have the mechanism or the library or the code in place already to do the authentication and authorization check. So just use it. And if you don't, well, go back to day one and start over.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I would say is while you're building APIs, make sure you test every single part of the API, the headers, any kind of
Yeah.
includes, all the data variables, and that they're invalidate them. Because as an attacker, the first thing I usually do when I'm hitting an API, I fudge all those things. I try to mess with
Yeah.
them. Maybe I'll hit two different endpoints, or or have two different kind of calls, and I'll swap information. Maybe I'll capture something and swap that into my call and see if it can give me elevated privileges based on like whatever fields are there, or give me different information that it shouldn't give me. Validate every single. It comes back to like
Yeah.
core AppSec privileges or principles. Input validation. If you're ever taking any kind of input, if it's coming over the wire and into whatever application via API, whatever, validate it. Make sure it's
Yeah.
expecting what you're expecting. Coming in is what it's expected, and then make sure it's this is part of that user, part of that service, and part of that authentication session.
Yeah. It's crossing a trust boundary, right? So untrusted something, blob of stuff coming into my trusted space, validate it. Because when I'm attacking something, I'm going to look at how that's constructed. I'm going to look at the headers. I'm going to look at the payloads, et cetera. And I'm going to, like you said, tweak everything that I possibly can. I'm going to turn the knobs, flip the switches, see what more information I can glean from it. I've done this where it's like I saw an API call and I was like, I wonder if I could get someone else's information with that. And lo and behold, I could. And so this was in like a performance management system and a long time ago, but I basically got everyone's performance review, no, regardless of who did it. And I pointed this out to the information security officer, and they're like, "You did what?" So they got the dev on the phone he felt horrible. He was like, "I don't know how we
Well,
missed this, like
they,
fixed it
they never
in the middle of
make a
the night."
mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, but like to his credit, he fixed it in like 20 minutes in the middle of the night, deployed the fix, asked me to test it, and less than an hour later, we were good.
Yeah. It's true.
And again, so it's like being an enabler. Like, hey, I found an issue. I'm here to help you. Let's do this, fix it, move on.
Makes sense. Yeah. Love that story.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time for doing carrying out attacks than I do PowerPoint.
Like poking around. Yeah. I wish I had more time to poke around. Some of my, past exploits that we found were just poking around APIs and throwing things
Yeah.
in where it shouldn't be. And we found some really crazy combinations that not even our pen testers saw. And I've told the story, I think, in the pen testing one where, we were testing auth and mostly auth zero stuff around APIs. And we just found all kinds of holes, different sessions that we could use because we weren't properly checking the session headers and all kinds of awesomeness. And we're able to jump into other people's sessions without even knowing or having any information of theirs because we also weren't validating certain things. I was just like, this is crazy, super fun. But I think that's the next segment we want to get into. Is it just market fluff?
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, yes. In a lot of cases, no. It's evolving, right? So I think one of the hottest spaces for AI right now is being putting AI to use in the security operations center. the SOC. I talked about this in a previous episode. It's a band-aid. It's probably a necessary one for the time being. So you go and fix everything where you should have fixed it in the first place. But machines are really good at pattern recognition, at data processing, at kind of making decisions based on a ton of inputs quickly, right? So AI can build context about issues like or alerts in the SOC and put that story together very quickly. Whereas a human, it might take a few hours. And so it saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of headaches. Maybe this is how we reduce burnout in a SOC, and let them focus on engineering and doing the fun stuff and building stuff. Um, but that I think that's the biggest application I've seen of it so far. And I'm not going to branch into AI and AppSec because I know that's your jam, and I want to hear from you on that. Um, AI in like we're seeing it built into CSPM, CNAP, workload protection platforms, whatever you like to call them these days. We're seeing it in identity tools, which it's showing to be very powerful in that, again, it recognizes patterns, it recognizes history, it understands the attributes. You can train these things and give them the context to be able to make good decisions. And you, of course, set guardrails to say if you can't make a decision, then bring a human into the loop where like privileged activities are concerned. And I know that's very hard to do, but that's the direction we need to go.
Agreed. Well, the big thing I want to talk around AI is that I think AI is perfect for churning through data.
Yeah.
We're collecting, as you were saying, all the logs, but from the logs is all the different stuff we can get. All that we can grab, scrape, have build some kind of automation that hits all our APIs, grabs all our identities. Right, you could build something locally with an agent. You don't have to go have a big bad tool. You build a quick little script that hits your AWS account or all your CSPMs, grabs all your identities, puts them in some kind of JSON object, and tell AI to be like, hey, these are the things I'm looking for. You could the riskiest things, AI, wildcards, over permissions. Give it some examples, and then have spit out a concise list of things I need to look at by CSPM or by CSP. Cloud
Yeah.
service provider. And boom, now you have a curated list. That is something I think AI could be great with, because that is something a human being really would struggle with in a long time. But as you look through this, we all get alert fatigue, as you were talking about with SOC.
Yeah.
Same thing with SOC. Ingesting all those logs, taking in tons of different logs. You could even now with AI separate those logs rather than ingesting them all and looking at it cohesive. Maybe only look at specific ones and build an agent per log set and build a behavior and be like, hey, these are the behaviors that I normally see. Detect all behaviors that are outside of that. What are the one-off behaviors? And have it tune it to where you can build that out so you can detect that yourself. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of little things you can do that are cloud perspective where AI can really help, that are locally, that won't cost you that much. Because a lot of companies, this is what I'm talking about here, is these are entire companies. These are vendors you can go purchase. But can you do it yourself? I know for me, budget constraint teams, we have to be creative and think through these solutions as best as possible. I think those are primed for some crazy automation that you can build internally.
Yeah. AI is unlocking the whole it's changing the buy versus build conversation. So we're now in a place where, yeah, you can buy it if it makes sense and you have the budget, or if you don't and you have the people that have the know-how, you can go build it, and that's totally valid. Like the SOC is somewhere we've applied machine learning and AI for years. We just don't really talk about it because, like you just talked about, anomaly detection. We've been doing this for 20 years at this point,
Yeah. Well,
but now it's even easier.
yeah. I mean, I'm tying back because this I studied a lot on this one, but in the identity one, right? I already said you could build an agent that looks through your identities. You
Yeah.
build an agent that looks through your logs. You could build an agent that looks through your Kubernetes logs, right? All those, because Kubernetes has a ton of information, diagnostic stuff that it's spitting out. Grab all that stuff, throw it in a database or some kind of something. Have AI sift through that. Give you some anomalous behaviors. There are literally tools that sit there as sidecarts and scan and look for that anomalous behavior, right? You turn on the tool, you have to wait, what, a month as it detects behavior. My only terrifying thing I think that all of us do is that we turn those things on for behavior analysis. And you're like, what if the attacker's already there? Now their behavior is,
Part of the
yeah,
baseline.
it's part
That's
of the
always the
baseline.
risk.
Yeah.
That's this is why the SOC exists. Like, there's a whole science to this. Like, you could theoretically determine that there's a baddie in that environment eventually, but it takes time. Like, the baselines are often built now with the big tools. It takes 3 to 5 days, and you can always trigger a rebaselining if you want. But then too, it's like if you spin it up in a safe environment that's kind of cut off from the world and compare it to what's happening in prod, you can find deltas, right? And so that's another mechanism by which you can start identifying anomalies and investigating them and maybe clean up your baseline.
That makes sense.
There's so much we can do in the space that AI is just making it way easier.
Yeah. Well, the contextual analysis, I was thinking between a lot of the really cool infrastructure as code, Kubernetes, Docker container, all these different platforms that help manage those things, your automation, your scaling up in lateral or vertical and lateral. There's a lot of AI tools that are coming out that are specific on this, because traditional application security, product security, cloud security tooling, that it was really hard to get all that data and get everything there. There's so many failed startups, companies that I know that have like, hey, we're coming out with this, and then a year or two later, they're deprecating it because they
Gone.
realize how much work it takes to grab from between the cloud, what's in the code, analyzing that. Sometimes you have to do it in real time too. AI is
Yeah.
primed for that because that's what it thrives on, is kind of running in the moment, doing some contextual analysis rather than static analysis that a lot of these tools look for.
I mean, it's that shift from deterministic, which is your standard program, as it has certain paths. It's deterministic. AI is more non-deterministic. It's not perfect, right? Like, it's still partially deterministic, I feel like, but it's much more dynamic, and it handles a lot more data a lot faster. And it's only getting better.
Yeah. Well, it's only getting faster, better, more in depth as we keep feeding it. Well, Kurt, I think we're gonna have to do a part 3.
Like, there's going to be a part 3. There's going to be a part 4. There's going to be a part 10. We're going to be talking about cloud security from here until the end of time. It's just a matter of how often we do it.
True. Well, any last hot takes, grind your gears based off the topics we've talked about today that you can toss?
Oh man, I feel like I've had more hot takes in this episode than I've had in all of the past episodes combined. So I don't know if I have any more in me. I'm out of coffee. I'm out of hot takes.
Yeah.
It's
Perimeter
weird.
is the new, identity is the new perimeter. Kubernetes is
I
not just
knew.
containers, right? It's an orchestration platform. Identity is really hard. AI is taking over everything. APIs. Always authenticate. Treat them as hostile things. What else?
All AI is untrusted.
Yeah.
That is the honest truth. Stop trusting AI, because AI by default trusts everything, and therefore I trust nothing from AI. And
Trust but
you
verify.
shouldn't either. Always trust but verify. It's a matter of, it starts untrusted, and over time it develops the trust. This is a common pattern and approach we've used in security for longer than I've been alive, probably. Um, so it has to build trust, and once it has, and it's shown that it can operate and do what it's supposed to do without going off the rails, you can start trusting it, and you build it over time, and then you let it operate autonomously.
Makes sense.
Don't let it run your business from the start.
Fair enough. Well, I think that's all the hot takes, all the grind your gear sessions, all the things I could get out of you. This is Coffee, Chaos, and ProdSec. Please go give us 5 stars if you're still listening. Give us a thumbs up, smash the smash, follow the channel. We're a bit of everywhere, hopefully to have YouTube soon. We're going to have a Cloud Security 3. Maybe we'll talk about some horror stories. I don't know. We'll kind of see what's going on there. Hit us up on LinkedIn if you have any questions, want to talk about it, give us feedback, follow up on anything we've talked about today. And yeah, see you guys in the chaos.